Coming up next on This Week in Computer Hardware, frame rating. It's a new performance test for GPUs, Intel's new TV service, an affordable Thunderbolt motherboard upgrading your GPU, netbook replacement. Should you get a tablet or a Chromebook? All that and more coming up next on Twitch.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Twitch is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware, episode 200, recorded January 3rd, 2013. Here comes CES. Welcome to Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware. I'm Patrick Norton, and this is the show on TWiT where we try to get you all the important hardware news, whether you're PC, Mac, tablet, or, well, we don't care about the operating system. We just want your hardware to last longer, cost you less money, and do everything you want to do faster and faster. P.S. We love video games. Ryan Shrout, are you with us, sir?
I hope so. Yes, I'm here. We were talking about before the show. It's my second to last day. I don't know when you're going out to Vegas for CES. I'm leaving Saturday morning. So we had to kind of finalize all of our packing and all that kind of stuff today and our inventory for the trip. And it's amazing how many more meeting requests I continue to get on like an hourly basis from these people. They're like, oh, no, this is really important. And I'm like, well, it's 24 hours before I leave for the show.
You should have told me back in November.
Yeah, yeah.
It's pretty crazy. So, Ryan Shrout, PCPro.com. I'm Patrick Norton from TechZilla. We are mentioning the Consumer Electronics Show, which we will both be up to our necks in. I will, of course, see you Sunday night at the NVIDIA event.
Oh, yeah. Yes. So, I'll be there Sunday night for that. How long are you out there? Are you coming out Sunday and leaving when? Thursday, Friday?
I land Sunday at like 11:30 or 12. No, okay. I land Sunday at 1 and I leave Friday at some time, unless I can figure out.
I get out before you. I'm leaving Thursday. We've done this party. I know. Actually, I saw that tweet just today. Actually, but it's actually been a really good schedule for us because it's for people that don't really know. At CES, it actually runs Tuesday through Friday.
Right.
So it runs for 4 days. But everybody, this started, I guess, probably a decade ago, where everybody wanted to have that event right before the show. Mm-hmm. So there were shows on Monday. There were like events on Monday. But then other people were like, well, we want to be first. So then there'd be shows on the day before that. And then like I get there Saturday. I have a meeting Saturday evening with one of the laptop manufacturers, right? So 3 or 4 days before the show actually starts, we're already, like you said, neck deep in content. So,
which I'll just point out, as Burke was informing me earlier, of course, Twitch, well, not Twitch, TWiT, will be out in force doing specials and short content clips all week. So you can keep tuned to keep an eye on that.
Yep.
Which is almost a complete sentence. Dude, you are working on exciting new graphics benchmarking. Tell us about frame rating.
So this was just a terminology that we kind of made up today when we were trying to produce this article. So let me give you the brief history of benchmarking games. A long time ago, way back in the days when maybe many of our viewers and listeners were Wii-tots, there was time demos. And it was the most basic form of benchmarking a game. Basically, a time demo was recorded in a game, say like Quake, and you just you played the game for 60 seconds or something like that, and it recorded the actual frames that were being rendered to a file. And then when you wanted to benchmark a new system, a new video card or something like that, you ran this time demo. And all it was it tried to render those exact same frames as quickly as possible, right? So render them, you'd see this blur across the screen if you had a good video card. And it would come back with a time. Well, it took you 38 seconds to render this time demo. And that's how you would get your performance. And we moved on a little bit from that, and we got into frames per second. We were like, okay, you could actually take that. You know how many frames there were. Let's say there were 2,400 frames, and it took, 120 seconds. You can get 20 frames per second out of it, or whatever the math turns out to be, and you had that metric, right? It kind of made more sense. Instead of saying, well, my graphics card ran at 30 seconds and yours ran at 28, let's talk about, well, mine ran at 68 frames per second and yours ran at 75. Now we're talking about differences that kind of make sense, right, in terms of gameplay. Then we moved into frame rate over time, where we looked at the frame rate every second. And you'll see that in our reviews, Hard OCP's reviews, a lot of reviews over the last years have done this, where you'll see the average frame rate over a game run, you'll see the minimum frame rate over a game run, but then you'll see a line chart that kind of shows you the performance at each second. So you got a little bit more detailed information, actually a lot more detailed information over a 1 minute or 2 minute run of a game, where there were particular spikes in performance, where cards dip down lower, and more than just getting that one average over a span of a minute, you get to see 60 data points. Well, there's a push to find even more detail than that. And as these cards start to perform very close, let's say they perform very well, right? We talk about it on here a lot, where any graphics card will be able to play 1080p reasonably well at most settings on most games. But there are still these differences. We've had emails about them, talking about things like micro stutter, talking about unsmooth animations and this kind of stuttering effect that you get when you're maybe walking through the field on Skyrim or racing in Dirt 3 or something like that. And the idea here now is to look at individual frame times inside of even that second period, that window of 1 second. So Scott Wasson over at Tech Report's done a very good job of kind of developing this idea, and it's something that we have been working on a lot as well. We haven't had enough stuff to publish it because we're working on a little bit different way. I guess the short version is saying if you run at a 60 frames per second rate, each frame takes up 16 milliseconds of time, in theory. If it were perfectly smooth, right? You'd have each frame would take 16 milliseconds. 1,000 divided by 60 is going to give you 16.6 milliseconds. But what happens in games in the real world is that you get these variances in frame rate, in frame time, I'm sorry. And that is kind of where you start to see some stutter. If you have frame rates that go 16, 15, 16, 16, 40, 10, 16, 16, 16, you might see a glitch. You might see a jump. You might see some visual distortion there. And it's really hard to nail down when that happens. It's very hard to nail down how to even characterize that. Some people see it and some people don't. It's very kind of hit or miss. And the new graphics testing stuff that we're going to start doing. Like I said, we've been working on it for a long time. We've been working on a lot of software for this. We've been working on a lot of hardware for this. If you look at this story that we posted, there's a picture of a capture card, and it's a really simple looking piece of hardware, but it's like a $2,000 raw capture card that can do 2560 by 1600 at 60 hertz. And all it does is it acts like a monitor to our gaming rig. It's a completely separate system, and it captures the raw output from the video card. And what's the benefit of this is that you are it's recording what the end user sees on your display. No software between those last segments, no benchmarking software, nothing like that can get in the way. And then if you scroll down a little bit more, you'll see kind of what, here's a screenshot of where of the capture. And then if we use Photoshop and we can say, okay, I can actually tell where these breaks in the frames are. We've got a blue and a green and a red shape size there. We can start to look at frame rate this way, frame time this way. We can start to, get into deciding what makes a stutter, what makes frames unusable. Yeah, if you look at that image in particular, you'll notice there's a very, very thin green stripe across the middle. And in Fraps, if you look at average frame rate, that frame shows up. That shows up as just a frame inside that second. But if you look at it in that fashion, you can clearly see that green stripe of data means much less to the overall experience than the red or the blue frame above and below it. And so we can start to theorize how we can get new metrics around this type of stuff. There's a video on that story that I would encourage you guys to watch. It kind of goes into a little bit more detail about the hardware we're using and what the ideas behind it are. But it's going to, I think, in the first quarter of this year, really change how we are testing things here. And I think once people start to see it, Scott's done a great job so far over at Tech Report, kind of talking about stuff, but he's using fraps and frame time measurements through fraps. And I think what our method does is it actually captures the raw output from the computer, so that there's no more software in between what is being recorded and what you're actually visually seeing, and that kind of takes, I think, a lot of the questions out of it. The hard part is we get literally, in many cases, 10 gigabyte Excel files that we then have to kind of like look through, and it gets really complicated. But the amount of information you get is substantially higher than otherwise.
Cool.
I don't know.
Yay.
It's the first step of information, and I really want people to go read the article and go watch this video, because I don't want to get into a whole lot of detail on it until we have a lot more info.
Right. So basically, what you're saying is you were trying to figure out a way to make benchmarking more emotionally traumatic for you over the long run.
Now I don't want to do it.
One of the stranger stories that got a bunch of coverage this week was the idea that Intel is going to turn itself – well, Intel is going to destroy your cable company. Intel is going to offer you the ability to order any channel you want from the cable television universe a la carte. And it's funny because they first – it was – I want to say it was a Forbes article that kind of made this go really big, and then the Wall Street Journal pointed out that they'd started talking about this maybe March of 2012. The article we got linked to GigaOM is a really good summary where basically, one, Intel's not going to be talking about a new TV service at CES. They are getting closer to revealing what's going on, because let's say Forbes and TechCrunch were talking about this. Basically Intel said they're not going to talk about this at CES, the big Intel keynote, which I mean we'll probably have demos of eye tracking and more waving around to change the channel on your computer, but supposedly, Intel Media, which is a division inside of Intel, is going to be offering a DVR or a set-top box or a set of specs that will be available to consumer electronics vendors, and they've been pitching themselves. They've been pitching themselves as a virtual cable operator, with the idea that they will be developing a relationship with major content providers to go the term in the industry is over the top, when basically instead of using a cable TV box, you go over the top through the internet and deliver programming. I'm really kind of curious because Intel says they want to deliver everything, tablets, PCs, mobile phones, the
Right.
DVR box that they're working on. They're going to sell it through like Best Buy, Costco, Walmart. It's going to be really interesting to see what they're going to be doing. Quote, Intel set-top box, this is the GigaOM article, will offer access to third-party apps, but also TV content licensed by Intel. And that's probably the biggest challenge, is because so many of the cable channels are A, owned by cable companies, or B, owned by former cable companies that have divested themselves of their cable company holdings. And, there's a lot of talk about how cable cutting is killing cable, but the reality is most cable companies are making money hand over fist. It's going to be really interesting to see how this develops. The GigaOM article is actually pretty fantastic. It's a huge article discussing it, but the reality is that we just don't have a lot of detail on this. It's going to be really interesting to see what it actually turns into when it does show up.
Do you think it will be successful?
Well, I mean, it's kind of funny. The quote that Yanko put on GigaOM is, "It's a box, it's a service, and it's intriguing to say the least." So I'm kind of really curious what exactly it's going to be. They supposedly they are talking about committing serious amounts of money, as in billions of dollars, to seed or to give Intel Media the ability to deliver the really serious contents. It's Forbes is reporting that tests are going to be starting in March. There's a possibility that All Things D is going to be when they reveal the device. But basically, it's a set-top box. Intel's going to sell it, which is selling directly to consumers outside of motherboards, is not into CPUs, is not really something we see Intel doing a lot of. I'm kind of really curious because if Intel has a lot of money, and money will grease the skids on this. Intel's been pitching itself as sort of a virtual cable operator. I heard you sneaker there.
Well, they have money, but so does Apple, right? I mean,
well. Yeah, but one of I think it was the Forbes article that suggested that most of the people approaching the how do I get cable content onto the internet problem are approaching it as a hobby or a sideline or a minor activity or something that's being subjugated to how important their store is because they're trying to compete, with whatever in terms of music sales. And in this case, it's a company with a lot of money that, a lot of money, a lot of clout, and potentially the willingness to actually make it a priority. I don't know. It's there's a lot of, I don't see HBO, like if Intel reveals this and they've got HBO, boom, they'll sell HBO Go without an HBO subscription. They'll sell 1 million of them. ESPN at less than $25 a month, because that was one of the numbers I heard from a couple of cable industry executives at a panel I did at CES a few years ago. They're basically like, a la carte ESPN would cost you $24 because of the structure that the MSOs pay for really premium channels like HBO. That they give away for free. Really premium channels that they give away for free, like ESPN. That's like a $24 a month channel a la carte based on the deals they do to deliver that channel. So I'm kind of really curious to see what Intel has and what it does. They obviously know the Apple TV is out there and they want to beat that bar. I'm really curious. I'm really, really, really curious because they have an interesting team behind this. So I'm just wondering if they can get the content or if it's just going to be, sort of an Android / boxy box with more games.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Not at CES, but we'll see.
True. No Intel's roadmap based on the most recently leaked roadmap, in case you're wondering about when processors are going to be showing up. Probably shouldn't talk about this too much until Monday because we'll be sending out the Intel keynote on Monday. Not that They will probably talk a whole lot about chips at the keynote, but what they talk about there will probably influence what Intel is doing. Sadly, we don't expect to see the Intel DVR. It's interesting looking at you have the new MSI Z77A, and I'm going to cheat and look. G45 Thunderbolt is dropped under. So Thunderbolt PC motherboard under $160.
Yep, it's this board right here. Let's see if my video cooperates. And it's not. But luckily we have a video on PCPro.com for you to look at that should be a little bit more reliable on it. But it is the good part about it is that it has a lot of great features, a lot of overclocking capability in Thunderbolt, and it's as cheap as any other motherboard out there, really, for the platform.
So another Thunderbolt news, we expect I expect, I don't know if you expect, I am expecting to see a lot of Thunderbolt accessories that are not hard drives, although primarily hard drives when we see Seagate and Western Digital at CES. But I love the article on the Sumitomo Electric Green Lit for infrared light in Thunderbolt. The Sumitomo Electric basically say they are the first company that is going to produce optical Thunderbolt cables. There's a connector is about 1 centimeter longer, but you will be able to run cable up to 100 feet versus the current Thunderbolt cable length. The copper Thunderbolt cables are capped at 10 feet, and of course, Monoprice and nobody else at this point will have inexpensive Thunderbolt cables. Although who knows, maybe there'll be some inexpensive Thunderbolt cable announcements from Intel at CES. We can always dream of that.
do you
think the
think
cable thing still drives me nuts?
Yeah. Do you think the the 100-foot Thunderbolt cable is really going to change anything on the Thunderbolt ecosystem though, or is it just
Not even a little bit. I just, as somebody who's run gigantic USB cables or used Ethernet to extend HDMI and other things, I just like the idea of having the option of having a ridiculously long Thunderbolt cable. It is a completely non-rational report. I don't think anybody's sitting there in the audience going like, that really changes Thunderbolt for me, because now I can put my external hard drive 100 feet away from my computer and have essentially the same lack of latency. I don't think anybody's, I don't think there's a lot of people dancing in the streets. I just thought the idea that finally having an optical cable connected to my computer was just cool. Occasionally I geek out.
I agree.
Sorry. So, speaking of geeking out, if you've been too afraid to invest in one of the Korean monitors available on eBay that offer the unbelievably awesome WQHD resolution, that's 2560 by 1440 in 27-inch, Monoprice has decided to make things feel a little safer for you. Do you guys actually have one in-house?
No, we do not. Unfortunately, but we were all very excited when we saw this pop up on the Monoprice site. It's something I think we talked about a month ago or so. They announced they were going to do it, but $390 from Monoprice, a company that you and I trust. I think most of our viewers and listeners would trust, and you get a warranty with it, which you do not get on the eBay-based monitors. And based on some of the reports I'm getting and from Twitter and that kind of stuff, the ones being sold on eBay have actually been jacking up their prices because they found out how popular they are.
Now.
Yeah,
they've gone from like $370 to like $500. It's been interesting to watch because, like, post Christmas, I was like, maybe I can get my monitor, and I was like, I can't afford it.
When Ken bought his, he paid $330 shipped from Korea.
Right, and now they're pushing as high as $600.
Right, but $390 from Monoprice, I think that's before shipping, but should be good.
Only $385 in orders of 50 or more. Availability back order. Notify me when available.
I've already signed up for that.
That is
already signed up.
And of course, one more reminder. We talked about it earlier, but the TWiT network, Ryan Shrout, PC Per, myself, and Techzilla will all be out in force at CES next week. I think the big hardware news is probably going to start. Although I'll be seeing Seagate early on Sunday, the big hardware news is probably going to be NVIDIA. They are doing a post.
Unveiled.
Thank you. CES unveiled show or presentation, press briefing, press event thing Sunday night. So if I'm lucky, I'll be able to track down Ryan and we can sit and quietly snark with each other while we're snark. It sounds kind of rude when I say it that way. To see what exciting news is going to be coming out of NVIDIA. Yeah. It'll also be really fun to see the reporting from that event, because at that point, people will have like stuffed themselves full of really fatty food and drinks at Digital Experience, and then they will at the CES unveiled, and they will roll into the NVIDIA event, the NVIDIA press event, and start writing stories at 9 o'clock on a Sunday night. So,
I wonder if they thought about that.
Possibly.
I'm thinking maybe they didn't think that through. That'll be funny.
Twitch, TWICH at twit.tv is the email address. That's a great place to send us questions, and we will be answering those in just a second. If this is your first TWiT or Twitch experience, go to twit.tv, or to subscribe or find all the older episodes of Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware, go to twit.tv/Twitch. And for the unbridled joy that is the email questions, we're going to start with an email from Oscar about a random reboot during gaming. This is painful. He says, recently my 3-year-old $3,000 NZD gaming PC started to reboot randomly while I'm gaming. It started when I was playing Grand Theft Auto 3 a few months ago. At first, I thought it was a motherboard issue, since I found other people with the same problem, a GA X58A UD3R, having similar problems on the forum. The problem did not go away after I flashed the BIOS, so I just gave up on the game. However, I recently started to play Skyrim, and the same PC is again rebooting intermittently while I'm playing. One peculiar symptom is that once it starts rebooting, it'll keep doing it a few seconds after the post, even in the BIOS settings screen. It won't stop until I turn it off and let it rest for a while. I suspected it was caused by my 5970s times 2, since it only happens while I'm gaming. I swapped it out for an old NVIDIA 8800, but it was still doing the same thing. I've also tried the following fixes, but nothing works. Clean CPU heatsink, plug it into an uninterruptible power supply, plug it directly into a wall socket without sharing with other devices. I'm now suspecting it could be caused by my Cooler Master Silent Pro 850-watt power supply, but I need to be sure since it's quite expensive to replace. What do you guys think? That is a really good question. I almost would have swapped the power supply first.
Yes, that would be my initial guess as well.
Yeah, because heating issues. GPUs tend to degrade in interesting ways before they power off when they have heating issues, thermal issues. I will say that there's something squeaky inside your power supply unit, and it needs to cool itself off before it functions properly. Especially if you're seeing that when you're rebooting or not gaming. If you reboot it, if something sort of crashes your machine when you're playing a video game, and you reboot your machine and it crashes like in the BIOS, that kind of reeks of a major power supply problem. Or because your CPU degrades gracefully if it has heat units. Your GPU usually do weird stuff on your screen if it's having heat units first. Or the last time I had one with a heat problem. What would you recommend for a replacement power supply, Ryan?
I would ask around, see if he has a friend that has a power supply that they would let him borrow to try and see if that's the case. But just to see if that actually fixes the problem. I don't know how intermittent it is, which can make those types of problems a pain in the butt. You could also try doing CPU only benchmarks, right? So when you're gaming, you're using CPU horsepower and you're using GPU horsepower, and maybe if you try doing a CPU benchmark without utilizing the GPU and see if that happens or doesn't happen, you can get a little bit more information on that as well.
Good plan. So fire up the Prime 95 and see if that wipes the machine out first.
Right. And then if it does, you don't really know what it is, but
right.
You do kind of you have a little bit more information at the very least.
It's not gaming specific or GPU specific.
Right.
So run Prime 95, swap in a friend's power supply, and hopefully between those two things, you'll be able to isolate the problem.
Yeah.
$3,000 for a PC.
3 years ago.
3 years ago. It's almost as much as I paid. Actually, it's more than I paid for the Suburban. Mickey's got a question about a new system build. Love the show. I'm thinking about doing a new build. Here's a link to what I am thinking about. Is the PC part picker. And there are a few things I'm not sure about. First, which video card should I go with? I don't game as much as I used to, but I want to be able to play BF3. I have 3 displays that are not all the same, and games would only be played on one of them. My budget for the card would be about $300. Also for the SSD, 840, 840 Pro, or Vector. Is the price worth the performance? Any other suggestions, Mickey?
So he has the Power Color Radeon HD 7950 in there now. And that is a $294 video card, which is very close to his $300 limit. Right. And I would say it's probably as good a card as he's going to get for that dollar. You have to go a little bit over 300 to get into the 670 range and that kind of stuff, the GTX 670 range, which would be probably a better card, but not by a whole lot. So I think the configuration that he linked to us at PC Part Picker is actually a really solid complete build. Top end Ivy Bridge part, Corsair H100 cooler, that G45 Thunderbolt motherboard we were talking about, Samsung 840 and the 7950. That's a pretty killer system for $1,300.
Yeah, I would stick with the Samsung 840. They seem to be doing good with reliability. Corsair 550D mid-tower case. That's still a lot of money for a case, but if you like the case, enjoy it. I have trouble paying more than like $50 for a case most of the time. And the Corsair Enthusiast 750 watts, 80 plus bronze certified power supply, which should be pretty solid. It's a nice system. Core 73770K is a nice part. So, Mickey, you are in good shape. Start spending. And by the way, if you're buying bits and pieces here and there, don't. Save everything up, buy them all at once, because if you buy your GPU now, your CPU now, and you buy the rest of your parts over the next 3 or 4 months, you're going to find that CPU or GPU for a significantly less amount of money, or they're going to release a new part. You're going to be like, oh, I could have gotten a 3780 for the same amount of money and had 7% more performance on gaming. Just saying. Save your money, buy all at once.
Yep.
It's the Twitch way. Jonathan has a question about Atom-based. Actually, I should say, Jonathan was kind enough to answer a question I had about Atom-based Windows 8 netbooks, or putting Windows 8 on an Atom-based netbook. He said, I heard Patrick mention wanting to try Windows 8 on an older Atom-based netbook. I've been running such a beast since the Windows 8 developer preview. I have a Lenovo S10 II with a Corsair 4 Series SSD, F120 gigabytes, or 120 gigabyte. 2 and 2 gigabytes of RAM. The drive is only SATA 2, not SATA 3. The complete powered off the Windows desktop startup time is about 20 seconds. I use this machine to watch short videos during my lunch break, and it handles any 480p and most 720p content without issue. The screen res is only 1024 by 600, so the Metro interface apps don't work for the most part. Some 720p content has hiccups due to the high CPU usage due to the H.264 decoding. The integrated graphics on this model doesn't seem to support DXVA acceleration to decode H.264, which brings me to the second part of this email. I'm looking to replace this computer, but where I use it, I need something with a base and a top hinge like a standard laptop. Using a tablet would be very difficult, as where it sits is not flat or a straight surface, and I use a rubber mat to grip so it doesn't slide. I was thinking of a MacBook Air, but for a base price of $1,000, it's a little high. I was also looking at an inexpensive Chromebook, as I read that some of those can be modified to run Ubuntu. However, I don't know if the Celeron and integrated graphics would be any better for video playback, which is the primary reason for this change. I was wondering if you guys had any suggestions. My goal is to stick with something around the 10 to 11 inch range, since I placed the unit on my car dash to watch videos, and I would like to stay with a regular PC versus an ARM tablet or such, so I'm not carrying around another laptop for general computing also. Thanks, guys. Love listening to the podcast every week. I'm sitting here and I'm like, law enforcement or postman or salesman?
Yeah, that does. Or not a very smart driver, one or the other.
I once saw somebody driving on I-5 with a old school 5-inch CRT television, portable television, jammed onto their dashboard. Which was just one of the most awesomely frightening things I think I've ever seen in my life. It's kind of funny because when you say, when you talk about having something that's pretty much dedicated to just playing back video, like, I was thinking like tablet, get a case for the tablet. The case for the tablet will work on the rubber dashboard. But the whole, regular PC, so I'm not carrying around another laptop for general computing. Man, I keep wanting to say, try a tablet. Try a tablet with a case. Get a case for the tablet that opens up, in the presentation style, so you can prop it up on the dashboard. But I'm not sure if that's going to work. Have you seen much in the way of 11-inch notebooks?
So Lenovo has the Yoga 11, but that's a Windows RT machine, not a Windows 8 machine. So I don't know if that would qualify in the not needing a second computer for everyday computing, right? So I'm not sure if that would work out. I like the idea of the Chromebook personally. I don't have enough experience with one of the new ones to really dive into it. I think the Celeron would be a much better performer than the Atom part in terms of video and that kind of stuff. So I don't think you should worry about that.
Yeah, I mean, there should be enough power out of the processor in the Chromebook. I mean, it's going to be a big step up compared to the Atom CPU. It's going to be interesting. It looks like, I was wanting to say, somebody just wrote an article. Where did it go? Aha, Acer kill-off netbooks as Chromebook tops popularity chart on Amazon. So it's interesting. Like the netbook is effectively dead. But yeah, that would be, the Chromebook is really tempting. And it's cheap.
It's just cheap. Yeah, exactly. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't take too much more time to maybe sell that off or give it to your girlfriend or mom or whoever, and then maybe go a different route as well.
The old give it to your mom side. Hope your mom's not listening, man. She's going to be really ticked. Yeah, 6.5 hours of battery life, 2.42 pounds, 11.6-inch screen. Dang, dude. Wow. Now I want to get one and run Ubuntu on it. One more question before we go?
Sure.
It's a good one. Brian wants to move from an HD 4000 to a GTX 680 down the road. He says, thanks for the great show. Thank you, Brian. I like the gaming perspective to all the hardware reviewed. So does Ryan. He says, I'm in a PC building newbie, about to put my Xbox 360 out to pasture in favor of my own box. My Steam box will be for rendering work stuff, Cinema 4D and After Effects, and to play a lot of games I've kind of missed out on, waiting for a higher resolution system than my Mac Mini running Boot Camp. Deus Ex, Human Rev, Batman Arkham City, and I'm new to Crysis. I've been playing the first half in low settings, and I just want more. So we have another PC part picker build that he posted up on there. Cooler Master Hyper 212. This is a different one. Sorry. Another Core i7 3770. Sorry. Like, I'm laughing. Like, so many of the parts are the same. And it's like, well, duh, because everybody wants a 3770K. It's the 920 of today. ASRock Z77 Extreme 4 ATX, G-Skill Ripjaws X Series, 8 gigs of memory, a Crucial M4 solid state drive, which is a great deal, 256 gigabytes for $185. Seagate Momentus XT500 gigabyte, 7200 RPM drive, GeForce GTX 680, a Cooler Master, 922 ATX mid tower case, Corsair Enthusiast 750 watt 80 plus bronze, and a Asus BC12 B1 ST BLK BAS Blu-ray reader, DVD and CD writer. I just wanted to get it all in.
Gotta love those.
The names are just so horrible. He says, I know that the new i7 3500K has an integrated graphics card, the HD 4000. So I thought I might build the system initially and wait till the 680 drops closer to $400 to upgrade this to this full system, maybe closer to February or March. Question: what kind of problems might I encounter if I put this system together first with the integrated HD 4000, then upgrade to the GTX 680 in a month or two? Or any tips to avoid weird upgrade issues? Thanks in advance for any help, and Happy New Year, Brian in Chicago. He'd also like to know what we've been playing lately. There will be no problems. Your biggest problem will be knowing that when you get the GTX 680, your gaming performance is going to be stellar compared to the HD 4000, which hopefully will outperform the Mac Mini.
Yes. I don't. You're right. There's no problems at all. It's not like adding in a second hard drive and having to move Steam data back and forth or anything like that. I mean, everything's smart enough to know to use the GTX 680 once that's installed.
And upgrading is basically like, would you even bother to sort of delete the HD 4000 and put in a generic VGA driver before upgrading the card?
Just move the monitor and you'll be good.
Yeah, power down the system, open the case, plug in the card. Make sure you put make sure you don't lose the power cables if that power supply has fancy removable configurable internal cables for your devices, and reboot. Install the latest driver downloaded from the website, and that works whether you're doing an NVIDIA or AMD. And you should pretty much be done after one more reboot.
Yep.
So there you have it. Well, I think should we shut it down since we never know when your internet connection is going to wipe out.
Yes.
And I think it's safe to say next week for both PCPer.com and TechZilla is going to be all about CES. Mm-hmm. Intel, NVIDIA, Seagate, Western Digital, and 1,000 other companies from Logitech to Kensington to everyone. LG, Samsung, Panasonic, Pioneer, Sony, and another 2,400 companies that I haven't named at this point. Are you excited, or are you just horrified with the amount of equipment you're going to be carrying?
The build up to it is never fun because you're always worried about missing that one item that you're really going to need. Once I'm there, it's fun. At least the first couple of days. After that, it's not fun anymore. But
after that, you're dehydrated and in pain and just want to go home to your
It's funny. We do daily podcasts from there, and we just, I don't know why, but we listened to like the first 5 minutes of all 5 episodes we did last year, and my tone as the week went on, like you can follow how disgusted I am that I'm still in Las Vegas as the podcast, like within like the first 30 seconds, where it's like, hey, welcome to the podcast, CES Day 5. That's how it goes.
And it's good that you mentioned that, because I thought I was imagining it or projecting my own feelings on you.
Nope, that's all me.
Well, that is it for our 200th episode of Twitch This Week in Computer Hardware. If this is your first episode, you want to email us a question, twich, TWICH at twit.tv is the email address. You can find all the information for subscribing up at twit.tv/twitch. I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Ryan Shrout.
We will hopefully see you next week from CES or after CES if we are so lucky to survive. That's it for this edition of Twitch.